a Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. What is up, everyone? Talking kickers today. That's right, Jake Moody. Big time pick for the San Francisco 49ers, and some absolutely love the pick. Some hated it. And then there's ones like me that were shocked it was in the third round, but are kind of trying to come around to the idea of Jake Moody being the kicker that the 49ers needed. Why Jake Moody is the money pick of the draft. That's right, money pick of the draft. So we're going to have a lot of fun with this one because there's been a lot of reaction to Jake Moody being picked. First off, the 49ers definitely needed to make a decision at the kicker position. It was obvious that they were not going to be able to bring back Robbie Gould. Robbie Gould was seeking close to $5 million or more than $5 million, and the 49ers simply just cannot afford to bring back Robbie Gould for such a huge amount. It's not that Gould doesn't deserve it. The 49ers just can't afford it with the roster that they've consistently been able to build. Robbie Gould has been one of the best kickers in the entire NFL for a long time, and playoff numbers are just absolutely ridiculous. He's fantastic. So they traded for Zane Gonzalez from the Panthers. The Panthers were about to release him. The 49ers went ahead and made a move and traded for him, and basically contingent on him playing, the draft pick is null and void. So if he doesn't play, it doesn't cost the 49ers anything. If he does, it's a 7th round pick. There were lots of questions. Will the 49ers actually draft a kicker? They had worked out Jake Moody. We had heard they had worked out Ryland as well. They were going through and working out some of these kickers, and potentially they were going to go ahead and target one. There had been lots of jokes that maybe the 49ers would take one as early as round 3 because of what had happened before with Mitch Wisnowski in round 4. So it was very, very interesting whether Jake Moody was going to get the pick. Then simply right before pick 99 was to be announced, we got the tweet from Jed York that said the 49ers were kicking the draft off right, which simply meant it was going to be a kicker, and it ends up being Jake Moody. Now, Jake Moody is one of the most high-profile kickers to come out of the NFL draft in a long time. Most were talking about him being a pretty high-round pick. On most mock draft boards, you could see him going anywhere from top 150 players, around 150, all the way to around 250. So he's somebody that was thought to be available in the middle parts of the round. Kyle Shanahan referred to it that normally you see a lot of kickers go in the 4th round. There's tremendous value in kicking. I think a lot of people are very upset because they see the players that were available and they say, hey, the 49ers could have got a really, really good position player. And that's the case. Kyle Shanahan kind of references that when they talk. So I want to play this clip before I get too far into it of the San Francisco 49ers, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. I kind of clipped up a couple of things so you can hear what each one of them have to say about Jake Moody. And then I'll give my thoughts on Jake Moody and how he's a huge money draft pick and why that makes sense for the San Francisco 49ers in 2023.
Schneid's and his group did a great job of really vetting these guys, doing a thorough process, involved our R&D department, and Jake was the consensus guy for us.
You know, we felt like we got the best kicker in the draft, and one that, you know, I can't say that I study kickers every year, but the people who do felt very good about it. And, you know, I think it's all about, you know you need one, so where are you going to get it? And you think you're looking at, you know, there's probably 5 to 6 teams who you feel need a kicker. And so the whole debate is where to go get that guy because it's someone you need to get. And, you know, when you look at the history, the majority of kickers go in the 4th round. We didn't have a 4th round pick. The guy was not going to be there in the 5th round.
But where do you take a kicker? You know you need one. You got to get the player. And that's what Kyle Shanahan is kind of referring to there. But you hear John Lynch talking about, you know, the fact that Brian Schneider and the special teams group thought that Jake Moody was the guy that they absolutely wanted. But what is the value of a kicker? Most say, hey, why would you take a kicker there at that point when you could take another position player? I guess it depends on value and how you look at it. my initial reaction was the same as most. It's like, man, there's a lot of really good football players there. Now, in round 4, the New England Patriots traded up and took Chad Ryland. So potentially that would have been a spot where they would have been willing to go up and get Jake Moody. John Lynch even referred to the fact, and Kyle Shanahan did it in their pressers as well, that they wanted to take the pick at 99. They were afraid someone was going to trade up to 100 in front of them at 101 and take Moody there. So there was a real thought that there were 5 or 6 needy teams in this draft. But value of a kicker is interesting because most think there's not that value there. You can get a guy in the 7th round. You can get a guy undrafted, and they can come in and do the job for you. And that has been the case most of the time. Earlier this year, the stat was flying around that the NFL had seen one of the last 16 kickers make it to their second contract. That definitely made it so it made it a little bit tougher to process the thought of taking a kicker early and then them not making the second contract. Mitch Wisnowski, a punter who the 49ers took in the 4th round, did just make his second contract last year. But what is the value of a kicker? And I keep teasing it because it depends on how you look at it. If you look at it as a player that's not consistently getting the same amount of snaps as everyone else, you're going to devalue the position because he's not going to be on the field. He's not going to be making an impact against the quarterback or for the quarterback or as a quarterback. And usually that's where you find your value. And that's why most positions, quarterback, left tackle, edge rusher, are valued more than every other position in the draft. But when you're thinking about a kicker, the kicker does do a lot to impact the football game. It was just last year that Robbie Gould's inability to kick the ball into the end zone and create touchbacks created great field position for opposing offenses. Well, enter Jake Moody. That's a check in the 49ers direction. He can consistently be able to make teams take touchbacks and start at the 25-yard line. Going 75 yards seems to be a little bit more difficult than going 65 or going 50 in some cases, which were the case for the 49ers. Now, it doesn't always mean that you don't want to try to kick the ball high in the air, pin them back deeper than getting a touchback, but at least you have that ability to do so. Also, how many other players have such a direct impact on points? When you have an extra point, the kicker kicks the ball up and through. And we know we kind of take these things for granted at times because Robbie Gould was so good at it. But we've seen other teams struggle with it. The Cowboys had huge struggles with extra points, not only at the end of the season, but in the playoffs. So you need to make sure you have someone that accounts for points. So does that make a kicker's value really immense? Well, when you throw in the fact that the 49ers do kick a lot of field goals, it makes the kicker position maybe even more valuable for the San Francisco 49ers. So gauging a team's value and what their board is can be entirely different depending on the team that you're looking at. Now, we do know Robbie Gould had extreme value for the San Francisco 49ers and won huge games. If it's not for Robbie Gould, the 49ers don't win the playoff game in Green Bay. Now, we know that the huge assist came from Jordan Willis on the blocked punt, that special teams play. But Robbie Gould has won a many games for the 49ers. Now they have this catch-22. We can't afford to pay him, but we still don't want to lose that value that we had with kicker. Kyle Shanahan said we needed a starter. This is the one position we didn't have a starter at. So the 49ers went out and they got one. So that's why they valued kicker so much. That's why this could be the absolute money pick of the draft because the San Francisco 49ers needed it. Where you have value is where you spend the most money. And that's what they needed in this situation. How many players on the team and on the roster actually account for so many points like this? There's not very many. Of course, you have more value for a quarterback like we talked about, or a left tackle or an edge rusher. But after that, does a kicker not have a ton of value? How many points do they count for per game? Imagine if your team was only getting 6 for every single touchdown. The average team scores what? 2-3 touchdowns in a game? You're short 3 points. That could be the difference in a game. Are you getting to a late situation? You only have enough time to get into field goal range, and your kicker has to make that kick. Now, of course, Jake Moody has to be a very efficient kicker. I've heard some say he has to be an all-pro to validate this pick. I don't agree. All I think he needs to be is consistent. All he needs to be is on the cusp of being a Pro Bowl player. All he needs to be is the player that the 49ers want him to be, the player that he needs to be, to make extra points and kick field goals and help them win football games. He doesn't have to be the very best because he went with the 3rd round pick. He just has to be a player that the 49ers know they can count on when crunch time happens. That doesn't always mean you're an all-pro. How many players for the 49ers right now are not all-pros, yet they count on them in crunch time? So I think this pick at surface and definitely initially caught a lot of people off guard. But Jake Moody could be the exact thing the 49ers needed. And if Jake Moody steps in year one and is a consistent kicker that everyone believes and thinks he can be, and he helps the 49ers win football games, isn't that value enough for the San Francisco 49ers? What if Jake Moody is not Robbie Gould, but just a step below, and that's enough to help the 49ers win the Super Bowl? In that case, the 49ers made an absolutely dynamic pick. Yeah, there was lots of valuable players around there. Yes, there was offensive tackles that everybody wanted them to take, but that's not what the 49ers needed. Jake Moody is the money player the San Francisco 49ers absolutely needed. So, Jake Moody is the money pick of the draft for the 49ers, right? It's going to be a fun offseason. It's going to be a fun training camp as we're going to get to see Jake Moody out there making kicks for the San Francisco 49ers. Was it the right decision? Only time will tell. But I think when you think of it logically, it makes a lot of sense for the 49ers to go with Jake Moody. He is an absolute stud in college. If ever you were going to draft a kicker out of college, you want them to be highly decorated. They don't get much more decorated than Jake Moody. So thank you guys so much for watching this episode about the money pick of the draft with Jake Moody. Finding value in a kicker in the third round, not always the easiest thing to do. I think circumstance and also positional need caused the 49ers to make the pick. But what do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. Would you have drafted Jake Moody in the third round? Have I convinced you that maybe there's enough value there that you should? Or is this completely wrong? I just want to know what you have to say. Let me know in the comment section down below. And like always, like the video. Thank you so much for that. Share it if you have the opportunity. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. More content will be coming your way as I'll still continue to cover every single draft pick the 49ers had and how they can have an impact. Plus, UDFAs, undrafted free agents. We'll be getting into that pretty soon as well. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of 49ers Cutback about Jake Moody, the money pick of the NFL draft. But until next time, stay safe and remember the right way is always the 49ers way.